Welcome. This is the first in a series of video tutorials on using Netlab from my dining room. Hopefully this is take two, so hopefully last time I cut my head off, so it's not a good thing. Anyway, Netlab is one of three technologies that we are adopting in the cybersecurity program with the goal of making it more flexible for you, the student, to do your labs. Since we're requiring so many of them, the idea is to let you do your labs when and where you want to. The traditional lab scenario was you had to have either a pod of Cisco equipment, 3 routers, 3 switches, possibly a firewall, and or some workstations with bare metal drives, and you would do an install on those from scratch. Very time consuming, very expensive, very complicated. So we're trying to come up with ways to deal with that. The other two are the Cisco Packet Tracer. It is a network simulator that allows you to place network devices, routers, switches, voice over IP phones, host, all kinds of things. I think the new version even has a cell tower in a topology, and then configure them. Very, very powerful. It does have some limitations. It does have a server with some of the network services like FTP, TFTP, syslog, DHCP. However, you can't do some of the activities that require you to install software on a physical, an actual box, and then interface with real equipment. The other thing is that there are some commands that are not yet supported, and that you have to do them in either physical in the classroom or here in Netlab. The other option that we have is a VMware workstation. It's a Type 2 hypervisor. It's installed on top of a host operating system. You can install it on your desktop at home, whether it's Linux or Windows or Macintosh. There's versions for all of them. We provide that as part of the VMware Academy. You can get an extended evaluation license for up to a year. Very, very powerful also. However, there is a lot of setup in the background. You have to have access to the installation media. Some of that requires licensing, for example, from Microsoft. The Linux operating systems are free. You can download them. But still, it's a lot of setup. Then you also have to understand the networking well enough to set up the pods, the work groups and small networks. Netlab kind of does away with a lot of that. Basically, all you need is a computer with internet access that supports a modern browser, whether that be Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, I believe Safari. The actual list is down here. These are older versions. Yeah, it does Safari, and it has Java. So that kind of knocks out the Apples, I believe. I don't know. I can't remember if they support Java. I'm not a big Apple person. But basically, you don't have to have a lot of resources to do this, because it actually uses the Java Network Launch Protocol and runs the application on the server. And we actually, the Netlab itself is a Netlab appliance, which is a physical server running Red Hat, which has this web interface. It's got a database in the background that interfaces with VMware's vSphere or vCenter, and controls 3 ESX boxes with 128 gigs of approximately of RAM and about 3 terabytes each of storage. So there's a lot of resources out there. All the setup is done for you. You don't have to worry about a lot of that kind of stuff. But normally your username is going to be just the same as in the classroom and on Blackboard. It's going to be your first initial, last initial, student ID number. I will give you a temporary password the first time you log in. It will prompt you to change your password. I suggest using the same password you're using in the classroom and on Blackboard. One less thing to remember. In that setup process, you also want to, and you'll see this later, you want to be sure and set your time zone to Central Standard Time. Makes it where you're not having to do some mental addition and subtraction as you're reserving these labs. The other thing that I don't know that's going to happen is the first time you run this, it is actually going to require you to do a remote access test. It checks to make sure you have all the appropriate software, Java, you're running a supported browser, that the ports are open to support those remote access applications. So let's go ahead and let's see if it's going to do it this time. I don't know if it is. Nope, it's not. That's okay. This is a lab I set up originally, and it should be shutting down. Most of the time you're going to spend is going to be in this lab reservations or the scheduler. File manager, profile, and chat, you're really not going to use a lot. There is a help function. Let's go ahead and let's see if, let's actually look at the scheduler first. There's going to be a number of classes. They're not all going to be available for you. The ones for Cisco are actually going to be slightly different in the fact that they actually have a pod of physical equipment, i.e. 3 routers, 3 switches. In a lot of cases, they've got an ASA firewall. Slightly different usage. I'm going to do another video showing that. Then there's another, the others, almost all the others are going to be virtual machines only, and that's what we're going to concentrate on today. Let's go to the IT Essentials. And I'm going to go ahead and pick the generic lab. You can see the reservations. Each of these columns with the logo, and you can see I've got quite a few of them out there. I probably could actually add some more. These are virtual labs. You get, depending on the type of pod, you will get a group of virtual machines and or physical equipment for your use exclusively. What it does is it sets those up, and then when you're done, it'll go ahead and shut it down. One of the things I recommend is going ahead and the length that you can have of these labs is up to 3 hours. Notice the Eastern time, so I'm having to do some mental arithmetic. Normally it's going to default to about an hour. You can have up to 3. I would look and see what you have and try, if you're going to actually be on the lab for 2 hours and 42 minutes, that's almost 3. About 10 minutes of that time will be used for cleanup. About 10 minutes will be used for initialization while setting up those machines. I'm going to go ahead and make that reservation. So I'm done. Okay, you see I've got another lab now. It actually in the background, when I click on this, it is going to fire up. This particular pod has 2 Windows 7 machines, 2 Vista machines, 2 XP machines, and a Server 2008. So let's go ahead and open that lab. I'm going to cut this out, so it's probably going to be a lot longer than you think it is, at least in the video, in real life. Okay, in real life, it's going to take longer than this. I've actually cut part of this video out. You know, you saw the blinking initialize. What it is actually doing, it is starting the 7 virtual machines. It is putting them on there and creating a virtual switch and VLAN. So they are isolated. They don't talk to anybody else. One of the things you'll find is that if the lab requires you to download something or install something, it may either be installed or they will have the installer available on the image, so you don't have to. It makes the labs go faster. Primarily, you're going to be using this topology in the exercises, and you can actually pick, I'll change an exercise. Now notice it changes the topology. It also has show lab content for the IT Essentials and the Cisco classes. These are the same files that you download either off the Netacad or Blackboard. The difference is the blue text. They've modified these labs that work in this environment. You're going to find that no lab, what is it about? No plan survives the battle unscathed. No lab is going to work exactly like it's presented. That's part of the challenges of IT. You're going to often find that you're going to go into a business or a network and they're going to have it set up different than you would do it, and you got to figure that out. But notice it does, they do address that with the blue text. I'm going to close that. The action, basically that just lets you either individually roll this machine back to the snapshot, power it off, power it on, or you can do it for the entire pod. This is very handy in case you happen to misconfigure something and get yourself in a hole, and it does happen. Status, this is not as powerful as it is with the Cisco physical labs. In that case, you'll actually see what's going on. You'll show that it's booting into ROM-on, that it's loading the iOS, that it's loading the configuration. So this is a very powerful tool. Actually, I'm going to go back and I'm going to fire one of these up. Notice, at least in Firefox, it's going to prompt you to open the Java Network Launch Protocol file, and just go ahead and open that. If you're using Chrome, it will download that, and then it will you'll have to run it from there. That's one of the reasons I prefer Firefox. I'm going to shrink that. Now look at the connections, and you can see this is the virtual machine I'm connected to. There is the ability to assign these pods to teams where you can actually work on labs together. Very powerful. We'll talk more about that in a later exercise. But I'll take it out of full screen mode. And then the exercise, and I showed you that briefly. Notice the little bar, little icon down here pops up, and it shows you which virtual machine. That's very handy, particularly, I'm going to change exercises. Very handy when you are controlling multiple hosts. Let's go ahead and do the remote desktop and remote assistance. Let's change exercises. Okay, now I've got two virtual machines. You notice this one is PC1, so I'm going to go ahead and open the second machine. Same process. And you can actually float down here and switch from machine to machine. However, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell which one's which. What I recommend is going in and personalizing one of the machines or more of the machines. Change the background, it's not a big thing. Let's make it green so it really pops out at you. Okay, now when I go down here and hover, it's very apparent which one is which. Okay. These machines, you may have to determine what network they're on, just like if you were on somebody's coming in to work on somebody's equipment. Same commands. Okay, this is 021, and I bet this is going to be 022 if I remember right. Okay, and I can ping, not pong. See, these are actually connected, and you can go in and all the networking works. If it has you download something, it will provide you that installer. I mentioned that. There's some little caveats why you need to read the instructions that are in the lab. Let's go into the baseline scanner analyzer. I'm going to scan a computer, and I'm going to actually, let's do this. Let's go back, and let's don't scan this one. Let's scan the other one. And notice that it's checked for security updates. If I start this, it's going to go out and try to download those. Not going to work. You got to cancel that back out. Let's start back in. And I don't guess it doesn't matter which machine I'm scanning. Go ahead. It'll tell you to turn off that security updates. Start the scan. This is a very powerful tool for Microsoft products. You can find patches that haven't been applied, things that have been misconfigured. These are just some of the things that are wrong from a security standpoint that you would probably want to go in and you write a policy to address those and on how it should be configured across your enterprise. Let's go ahead and close that. Okay. I'm actually going to go, while we're talking about this, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do schedule another lab, a different one, give it a chance to be firing up while we're working on this. This is the Security Plus class. Again, multiple pods. This is a reservation that's expired that I had when I did on my first take. Now notice I do not have now, and so I want to go back. I want to get this as close to that. Now today, I'm not going to make it any longer because I'm just going to kind of show you. So I'm done. I'm going to enter that lab. That gets it started. Then I'm going to come back and go back to my IT Essentials, so we'll be talking about that. Remember that they've kind of done triplets on all these labs where they've got them in Windows 7, Vista, and XP. You're only required to do the ones for Windows 7. There's a few exceptions to that. The registry backup can only be done in Windows XP. The only alternative to doing it in Netlab is to go ahead and create your own virtual machine with XP. That's another install. That's fine. In fact, it's probably a good idea. It just takes more time if you're pressed for time. Some of the command line utilities, for example, doesn't really mention the fact that this is 64-bit Windows 7, and some of those command utilities have been taken out. You can't run, for example, edit in 64-bit. Only runs in Vista, but all versions of Vista and XP. It does run in the 32-bit Windows 7, so I would suggest doing that also in Netlab. Let's go back up here. This should have been started by now. Oh, still working. I guess I'm going to cut this out at this point, and you're going to see another gap. Okay, we're done. It's still initializing a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and look at this. This is one of the reasons that I strongly recommend this for these. You can set these up. However, if you were going to do this in VMware, you would have to make two Linux machines on the internal network and two Windows. You would have to set up a Linux sniffer. This is a pfSense firewall. Basically, that's FreeBSD. That's a Linux distribution that you'd have to create, and then an additional Linux and an additional Windows box. It takes quite a bit of processing. Again, very same thing. I'm going to fire up backtrack. Hopefully, I'm going to get these rewritten and adapt them to Kali, which is the newer version of this from the same people. They renamed it and they moved it from Ubuntu to Debian. The traditional login for this is root and Tor, T-O-O-R. you need to look at the lab content at the bottom, because they have changed it. If you're familiar with Backtrack, notice it says the default root password. They've changed it to password. Then you just have to go in just like you would on a physical machine and start the X server. And it'll come up again. It's ifconfig, not ipconfig on Linux. Notice that it's on a different network. Instead of 192.168.0, it's on 192.168.100. Same thing down on the external network. That'll be on a different network. It'll be on 10.10.19. Slightly different view. And you can see that that is on a different network. One thing that is kind of interesting, this is 10.10.19.255. Let's go back to the internal network and see if we can ping it. Did I get that wrong? Oh, 148. I'm sorry. That was the okay, let's retry that. 48. Get the right IP address, and it works. And that's actually going through the firewall. So you see it's very similar. Now we're going to close the terminal. Again, this is why when you see the startup time, what I suggest doing the exercises and step through until you run out of time. That way you avoid that 10-minute startup and shut down. And I think that's it. We are going to do another presentation on the physical labs with the Cisco equipment. There are going to be some additional tabs. They're going to have a lot more functionality. And I hope you'll join me for those. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm done. That way I'm releasing the resources, even though we're pretty well set on that. I always like to do that. It's just a good thing to do. And we're not going to reestablish the connection. Okay, go in this, say I'm done. And the last one, I'm done. And that takes you back to a blank lab reservation screen. Again, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this is helpful, and we're going to go ahead and log out.